Broncos country, I am back. Now, I took a little bit 2 month hiatus, as you probably noticed. Now, the reason is not because the Broncos were losing games. It had nothing to do with football because at the end of the day, football is a game. And as much as I love it, I'm not going to quit doing YouTube because I love YouTube just because our team, was struggling. Now we're on the up and up. But the main reason was I just needed a break. I graduated college in May and I just needed some time to unwind and relax. Another reason was I was getting closer to Jesus. As you know, I am a Christian on this channel. And so a big part of my channel is spreading the good news before every video. And so I was just getting closer to Jesus myself because, sometimes when I started to spread the gospel and spread the good news, I kind of felt like I can be doing more and I can be a better Christian. So I was working on that. But now I am back, and in today's video, we are previewing the Denver Broncos versus the Detroit Lions game, which will be tomorrow. Now, I know this is coming out a little bit late. I recorded it already, but I wanted to re-record it because the audio was not great. So now we are doing that. And before we get started, as always, I do want to remind you that Jesus is King. I just pray that you give your life to him. He's got a plan and a purpose for you. He died on the cross for all of our sins. And if you believe Jesus and you've accepted him and have faith in him with your whole heart, that he died on the cross for your sins, then you'll go to heaven. It's that simple. It's that easy. It's not by how many times we read our Bible, go to church, or do good works, though those things are good, and show your faith in him. It is only through Jesus who we have our faith in, who died on the cross for our sins, and is why we get to go to heaven. That's my message. I like to share it before every video. I don't care if you like it because it is important to me, and I feel it's important to spread it to as many people as possible, even on my little platform here on YouTube. But with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into this. Starting off with the Broncos injuries, and really quickly, I just want to say, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe. We are a couple subscribers away from 500, and make sure you leave a like, as well as it helps push the videos out so we can try and reach 500 subscribers. If you can help me out, that would mean the absolute world to me. And with that being said, let's go into the injuries real quick. So we got a couple big injuries. First of all, Nick Bonito is out with a knee injury. That's a big loss for us. He is our leading sack getter this week. So we're, of course, going to have Jonathan Cooper, who you can see has an ankle injury. He's TBD right now. I would expect him to play. But if we lose him too, that's going to be rough. But I expect Jonathan Cooper to play. So him and Baron Browning will be the two edge rushers this week. Then we have PJ Locke, who is questionable with a neck injury. That could be another big loss because I believe Kareem Jackson has a one game left that he is suspended for. And if PJ Locke is out, then we're going to have to play guys like De'Laren Turner-Yell and J.L. Skinner at the strong safety position. So that could be a little bit worrisome. Then, like I said, Jonathan Cooper has an ankle injury. Guard Quinn Miners was out with an illness. As we all know, he was taken to the hospital during the Chargers game. Everything looks to be good. It looks like he is leaning towards playing from everything that I've seen just from the Broncos social media and injury report, but we'll have to see because it was, it can be a scary thing, injuries like that. So we'll see, but I would expect Quinn Miners to play. He is our best lineman. Then we have Samaje Perine with a knee injury. He's TBD. I would expect him to play, our third down and pass catching back. Greg Dulcich has been activated off IR with his hamstring injury, but after one practice, he also has a foot injury and he is out this week. So, spoiler alert, in my mock draft that will be coming out in a few days, there is a player that I've taken in every mock draft that I haven't really recorded or released to the public, but I take a tight end in every single mock draft because I think we need it with how injury-prone Greg Dulcich has been during his first 2 years in the league. And then both Mike Purcell and Chris Manhertz were getting rest. They're TBD, but I would expect them to play as well. Next up is the Lions injuries, and they have two of their starting offensive linemen that are questionable, and Taylor Decker with a back injury, and in my opinion, one of the best centers in the league in Frank Ragnow. He has a knee, back, and toe injury. He is also questionable to play in this game. Those could be big losses if they don't play. I would probably say they are going to play, but we'll just have to keep an eye out for that. by Saturday. It's a primetime game, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, 6:15 actually, 6:15 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. But yeah, those could be two big losses. Detroit has been struggling on defense. Their offense is the real strength, and missing a starting tackle and your starting center, the Broncos could take advantage of the backups there and of Detroit's offensive line. Benito Jones is out, or he's not out. He's questionable with a neck injury. Wide receiver Josh Reynolds is questionable with a back injury. And their rookie quarterback Hendon Hooker is out with a knee injury. I believe that is still his ACL, which he tore last season in college at the University of Tennessee. But I don't think it's really going to matter unless, Jared Goff gets hurt, which I hope doesn't happen. But yeah, Hendon Hooker being out isn't going to make a huge impact this week. Here are my 3 keys to victory. Number 1 is we have to shut down David Montgomery. He has been one of the best running backs all season since signing with Detroit, coming over from Chicago. He has been an absolute monster on the ground. Not so much of a receiving threat, but him, Jahmyr Gibbs as well. They're a pretty good 1-2 punch, so we have to shut down David Montgomery, force Jared Goff to pass. They got some great pass catchers in Amon-Ra St. Brown, but Jameson Williams as well. But I do think we need to shut down David Montgomery if we're going to win. The second key that I have is to protect Russell Wilson. Yes, Russ is going to take some sacks, trying to extend plays and trying to improvise on the run. But for those avoidable sacks, we need to protect him as much as possible with the offensive line, and they have been playing better as of late. And then honestly, we have to dominate on offense. As I said, Detroit's defense is struggling. They're going to be without C.J. Gardner-Johnson this week. I believe they activated him off of IR from what I read correctly. Now, he could play this week if I read it wrong, but I think he's going to miss this week and will be playing next week from what all the information that I have read. But we need to dominate on offense because Detroit has been struggling on defense. Their offense is really good. Defense kind of struggles, so we have to just keep scoring and put the pressure on for their defense to make a stop. All right, so here are the current records. The Broncos, we are 7-6, second place in the AFC West. We are 1 game behind the Kansas City Chiefs for first place. Unfortunately, they're playing the Patriots this week, so if there's any hope of overtaking them, I don't think it's going to happen this week. And then the Lions, they're 9-4, first in the NFC North. I feel pretty confident that it's their playoff locked in at this point, but right now they're just playing for positioning and seeding in the playoffs. Now, let's look at the 2 quarterbacks. Here's Russell Wilson. As you can see, there are stats on the screen, and as I want to preference in every video, is stats do not tell the whole story. You have to watch the game tape, you have to watch the game film to get the full picture, but I'll be honest, it's easier just to put stats on the screen and record a video. So that's why I do it. It has a nice representation, doesn't tell the whole story, but it's just easier to show that way. But he has 254 completions with a 67.2 completion percentage. He's thrown for 2,600 yards or just over with 23 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and a 49.9 quarterback rating, which isn't great, but Russ has been taking care of the ball. Of course, had the 3 interception game versus Houston. Now, I will say not all of them were his fault. There were some deflected at the line of scrimmage, which, I guess you can kind of blame him for. But, I don't think all 3 of those were his fault, in my personal opinion. And then he had that 1 interception last week, first play of the game with Michael Davis intercepting him. I don't really think that was his fault either. So has a nice touchdown interception ratio. He's been protecting the ball all season. Doesn't take as many deep shots down the field during his days in Seattle. I would like to see more deep shots, personally, because, especially with Marvin Mims and his speed, I'd love to see the deep shots. Courtland Sutton, probably the best contested catch receiver in the NFL. I'd just like to see more deep shots, but Russ Wilson has been taking care of the football. A lot of short throws. Maybe we air it out more this week. So for Jared Goff, he's also been pretty solid for the Lions. He has 311 completions with a 66.9% completion percentage. He almost has, which is crazy, 1,000 more yards than Russ, because Russ hasn't thrown for many 200-yard passing games as of recent. So it makes sense, but Jared Goff has been able to air it out with 21 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, which has been solid, a 58.4 quarterback rating. Jared Goff has had a really good season. Personally, I'm glad to see his resurgence. I liked him when he was on the Rams. Has never been like the best quarterback, but it's got it done. A lot of people said the only reason he was a good quarterback was because of McVay. Goes to Detroit, is having a really good season. I personally like Jared Goff as a player. Of course, though, I hope he does struggle this week against the Broncos so that we pick up the W this weekend. Now, let's look at Javonte Williams going up against the Lions front seven. So far this year, Javonte Williams has 170 rush attempts for 650 yards with a 3.8 yard average and 1 touchdown on the ground, which is crazy. We definitely need to establish more of a run game and score, I guess, in the red zone with our running backs. But, we're on the right track. Got his first touchdown last week versus the Chargers. And then, of course, through the air, he's been all right. 32 receptions, 180 yards, 2 touchdowns. Javonte Williams, of course, is our bell cow back. Maybe isn't having the season I expected to, but is having a decent season this year. As for the Lions front seven, this is the unit he will be going up against: Aiden Hutchinson, Levi Onwuzurike, Benito Jones, John Kaminsky, Jack Campbell, one of their 2 first-round picks, Alex Anzalone, and Derek Barnes. Now, personally, I am surprised to see Malcolm Rodriguez not starting. In fact, when I looked at Malcolm Rodriguez, I believe he started 2 games this year or something. So Lions fans, if you're watching this, let me know why Malcolm Rodriguez isn't starting, because to me that's interesting. Has he been hurt or what's going on? So it's just been interesting to me that why Rodrigo hasn't been starting this year. So this is the front 7 units. This is all 7 of these guys' stats combined. They have a total of 323 tackles, 24 tackles for loss, 14.5 sacks, and 44 quarterback hits combined between the 7 of them. Next up, let's look at the Broncos front 7 versus David Montgomery, and this unit is going to be Zach Allen, DJ Jones, Jonathan Harris, Baron Browning, Josie Jewell, Alex Singleton, and Jonathan Cooper in place of course, Nick Bonito, who is missing this week because of injury. So this unit together has 410 tackles, 29 tackles for loss, 19 sacks, and 47 quarterback hits. Nick Bonito is our leading sack getter with 7 sacks on the year, so you could add to that technically. You'd have to take off Jonathan Cooper's sacks and stats, but I can't remember exactly what those are. But still decent numbers, but would definitely have in, I would say, the 20-ish amount of sacks if Bonito was playing, because he is a great edge rusher. Maybe not as great in the run defense, although he has gotten better there. But it's been this unit, struggles against the run. I believe we're actually the worst rushing defense in the entire NFL. And with David Montgomery being their starting back, Jahmyr Gibbs as well, I think it's going to be rough. So we're going to have to shut down that run game and force them to pass, because I like our secondary with Justin Simmons, Pat Surtain, Fabian Moreau. Of course, Jaquan McMillan has been a rising star this year. And then whoever's back there at safety, whether it be P.J. Locke, De'Aaron Turner-Yell, or J.L. Skinner, we need to force them to pass. It is going to be tough because this front 7 unit, one of the worst against the run. So we need to make a statement this week and actually shut down the run. As for David Montgomery, you can see the amazing season he's had. 161 rushing attempts, which is 1 more than Javonte Williams. 770 yards, which is actually 130 more than Javonte Williams has. He's averaging about 4.8 yards per carry, has 10 rushing touchdowns on the season. In the passing game, he's all right. 12 receptions for 106 yards and no touchdowns. But David Montgomery has been one of the best running backs all season. As for the receivers versus the corners, I find it kind of funny because there's a correlation between all of them. You got the Sutton on Sutton matchup with Cortland Sutton going up against Cameron Sutton. Then you got the Jerry on Jerry matchup with Jerry Jeudy facing off against Jerry Jacobs. And then you got the rookie matchup with Marvin Mims facing off against Brian Branch. And if you watch all the draft streams and the draft videos from last year, a lot of you will know that I wanted the Broncos to acquire Brian Branch, we would obviously have had to trade up for him, but he's just so versatile. He can play in the nickel. He can play as an outside corner if you wanted him to. Maybe not the strongest there, but then he could play at both safety positions. He could play as a sub linebacker. Really wanted Brian Branch. Of course, the Lions got him. He's been playing a lot of slot corner for them so far this season from what I saw. So, yeah, it looks like it'll be Marvin Mims versus Brian Branch on Saturday. As for Courtland Sutton versus Cameron Sutton, so far Courtland this season has 53 receptions, just under 700 yards with 699, has 10 touchdowns, and his longest play came last week on that 46-yard touchdown against Michael Davis. As for Cameron Sutton, he's had an all right season this year. He's allowed 38 completions on 63 targets. He's allowed 499 yards, which is that the same? No, it wasn't. But it's kind of funny. Just under 500 yards for Cameron Sutton, allowing a 60.3% completion percentage, a 101.2 passer rating allowed, which is not great. And then he also has no interceptions and has allowed 3 touchdowns this season. As for Jerry Jeudy, he's my favorite player on the team, but has really struggled this year, and the writing might be on the wall that the Broncos move on from Jerry Jeudy, and that pains me to say because, as I said, he is my favorite player on the team. But this year, 63 targets, 42 receptions, 507 receiving yards, 1 touchdown, and his longest play being a 46-yard reception. It's been tough, especially last week against the Chargers. I feel like it's always the Chargers where Jerry just drops most of his passes, honestly. He has gotten better at it, but last week was tough for Jerry. Hoping he can bounce back because, like I said, he is my favorite player. And so yeah, we'll just have to see. He's going up against Jerry Jacobs, who has allowed 52 completions on 82 targets with a 63.4% completion percentage. He's given up 638 yards this season with a 96.5 passer rating allowed, which isn't great. Of course, it's better than Cameron Sutton. Not much better, but it is a little bit better. And then Jerry Jacobs has 3 interceptions to 6 touchdowns allowed this season. Now we're moving on to the rookie matchup, and we've got Marvin Mims facing off against Brian Branch. So far, Mims this year, he's been really good in the special teams role of being the returner. Elite there. We need to utilize him more, in my opinion, on offense. He's got that speed to burn guys, and if Russ has got a really good arm, really strong arm, and if he just throws it up and has Mims run underneath it, I think that can be a deadly combo. Just really haven't seen it this year. We've seen it on his 1 touchdown, which was the 60-yard long against the Commanders, and all the way back in week 2, and Mims just really hasn't been involved so much this season. 18 receptions on 26 targets for 298 yards. We have to get Marvin Mims more involved, especially if we want to do some damage to make it in the playoffs, and then do some damage if we do make it into the playoffs. Then we have, of course, Brian Branch, who's had a solid rookie year, I would say. Of course, we've been spoiled with a lot of great rookie cornerbacks these past few years. In my opinion, he's having a solid season for being his rookie year, especially with him having the versatility to play all over the field. He's given up 40. I mixed these up. I need to flip them real quick. All right, we're back. I mixed them up real quick, but he's allowed 32 completions on 49 targets. He's only given up 280 yards, which is pretty solid, and a completion percentage of a 65.3%, which, is solid. You would like to see it a little bit lower in the 50 percentage, but, I'd say this is about league average, and I think it's pretty solid for his rookie year. He's allowed a pass rating of a 90.5 when targeted, which you would like to improve and not have it be in the 90s, but he also has 2 interceptions and has allowed 4 touchdowns. So in my opinion, Brian Branch has been very solid this year. Once again, he's one of the guys I wanted the Broncos to draft last year. Didn't end up happening, ends up with the Lions, and I hope he has a great career because he was one of my favorite prospects coming out in this draft. As for the tight end, it is not Greg Dulcich. He's just been injury prone and hurt. It's been Troutman this season, who honestly has been pretty solid for what I expected him to do, I should say, because he's not the craziest receiving threat. He's going to impact, or he's going to have an impact in the blocking game. But, with a lot of our tight ends, mostly, like I said, Greg Dulcich being injured, he has had to take on more of a receiving role. And he's had a decent receiving season with 28 targets, 19 receptions, 150 yards, 3 touchdowns, as long as being 19 yards. But like I said, he is going to impact, or he is going to have an impact in the run game and being able to be an additional blocker for the Broncos. As for the Lions, they have got Kirby Joseph here. Yeah, I mean, Kirby Joseph is a heck of a player, and he's had a tremendous season so far this year. You can see he's been targeted 40 times and has only allowed 18 completions. He's only given up 296 yards, which is fantastic. Has only allowed a completion percentage of a 45% and a passer rating of a 66.2, which is outstanding. He has 2 interceptions, has given up 2 touchdowns, pretty much a 1-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. Yeah, he is fantastic, and one player we're going to definitely have to watch out for on defense for the Lions this upcoming game day, I should say. This upcoming game day on Saturday. Next up, it's the Broncos corners facing off against the Lions receivers. And I'll be honest, this one is tough because Amon-Ra St. Brown is clearly their best receiver, but he is also their slot receiver. So I was going to match him up against Jaquan McMillan because, historically this season, Pat Surtain has shadowed receivers that have stayed to the outside. So it wouldn't surprise me if he maybe matches up against Jameson Williams, who was my favorite rookie in the 2022 receiving class. Of course, it was Garrett Wilson, it was Drake London, then Garrett Wilson, then Chris Olave, then Jameson Williams, then Jahan Dotson. Hasn't really got a chance to prove himself with him being suspended earlier this year, and then, of course, recovering from the ACL injury in his rookie year. But that's not the point. I was going to have Amon-Ra versus Jaquan McMillan, then Josh Reynolds and Pat Surtain, Garden, of course, Jameson Williams and Josh Reynolds. But, I saw a podcast. It was Cam Jordan's podcast that Pat Surtain went on, and it sounded like he might shadow Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'm not sure if he actually is going to, but, our best corner going up against their receiver, I figured, why not? I'm just going to have that matchup anyway. So here it is. Pat Surtain this season has allowed 41 completions on 69 targets, which is a 59.4% completion percentage. Has given up 510 yards, which isn't great, and a pass rating of an 86, which isn't fantastic. Of course, he's guarding number 1 receivers. So as much as they don't want to target Pat Surtain, sometimes they are with him guarding their number 1 receiver. Has had some games, where he has, I won't say struggled, but, he's been solid. He's been solid this year. In my opinion, he is still the best corner in the league. Of course, I am biased in saying that, but, I'm going to stand on that. And then, of course, he has 1 interception to 2 touchdowns allowed. Now, I will say that second touchdown should have been an interception. He clearly caught the pass and had control of it in the end zone. Should have been an interception and a touchback. Instead, they gave the Packers the touchdown, which is just mind-boggling and insanely stupid, but it is what it is. As for Amon-Ra, he has had a great year he's had a great season so far. The season's almost done, but he's had a terrific season. 87 receptions for just over 1,000 yards, 1,063 to be exact. 6 touchdowns, a little bit lower than I was expecting, but with how well David Montgomery is, I guess it's honestly pretty solid, and it is averaging about 12.2 yards per reception. As for our cornerback 2, Fabian Moreau, and he's honestly established himself as a solid cornerback 2. I know he was drafted a while ago. He's a little bit older. It's bounced around from team to team, but personally, I would like to see Fabian Moreau stick around for another year, give him maybe a 1-year contract extension when the season is done, because he has been solid. Damari Mathis struggled at the beginning of this year. Isang Bassi as well. Fabian Moreau, has shut it down and has been really solid. He's been targeted 36 times, only allowing 20 completions for a 55.6 completion percentage, has only given up 376 yards, a passer rating of an 80.3, and has one interception and has not given up a touchdown this season. As for Josh Reynolds, and you guys can interplace the receivers with whoever you want, matching up against who. This is just my best guess. So Josh Reynolds has been targeted 48 times, 31 receptions, 494 yards, 5 touchdowns, which that's kind of crazy considering David Montgomery has 10, Amon-Ra has 6, and he has 5. That's honestly pretty solid, and he has an average of 15.9 yards per reception. Then moving on to Jaquan McMillan. Yeah, he is a rising star. He obviously, he's our slot corner. I don't think he should move over and play boundary corner because I do think he would maybe struggle a little bit more playing as a boundary. I think he's a phenomenal slot cornerback. He's only allowed 27 completions on 51 targets for a 52.9% completion percentage. Has given up 275 yards, a 78.5 passer rating, and he has 2 interceptions to 4 touchdowns allowed. But, he's had some strip sacks. Of course, one last week was called back, which it shouldn't have been, let's be honest. But yeah, Jaquan McMillan, he has arrived, and he's definitely our future slot cornerback. He has played phenomenal this season. As for Jameson Williams, like I said, my favorite wide receiver draft prospect in the 2022 NFL draft coming out of Alabama, transferred from Ohio State. But yeah, he has recently gotten back from his suspension a couple weeks ago. Hasn't done a whole lot, but I still think he's a very dangerous and explosive player that we have to guard. He's been targeted 26 times for 13 receptions, has 195 yards and 2 touchdowns on the season, and he's averaging 15 yards per reception. So he's a deep threat, as you can clearly see. Going to have to be on the lookout for Jameson Williams this week. As for their tight end, Sam Laporta, he is having a phenomenal season. He's obviously a rookie out of Iowa, early second-round pick. He was drafted before Michael Mayer, but it's looking like he should have been so far, which was surprising to me at the time. But Sam Laporta has had a great rookie season so far. 66 receptions on 92 targets, 702 yards with a 10.6% average reception, or I guess average yardage per reception, and 6 touchdowns on the year. Like you can see how explosive this Lions offense is and why we need to shut them down. It's going to be scary both on the ground and through the air. It's going to be a difficult week for the Broncos. Of course, their defense isn't as great this season, but their offense is explosive, so we also have to shut them down as well as score this week. And then for Justin Simmons, this year has had a solid receiver, a solid season. He's that ball hawking safety. He's going to go and he's going to get picks. Is decent in coverage, but isn't the greatest. And then, of course, one thing that I hope he improves on a little bit more is he's missed a bunch of tackles this season when coming down from his safety spot. Coming downhill to make a tackle, he has missed a decent amount of his tackles. So needs to maybe clean that up a little bit, but still one of the best safeties in the entire league. He's allowed 21 completions on 33 targets, a 63.6% completion percentage, only giving up 340 yards, and has allowed an 80.4 passer rating when targeted, and also has 3 interceptions and allowed 2 touchdowns this season. I'm hoping Justin Simmons can add another interception this week against Jared Goff. Now, finally here, it is going to be the Broncos pass rush versus the Lions offensive line. Of course, you can see the picture of Nick Bonito in the top right of the Broncos section there. Of course, he's not going to be playing this week, but, his picture is there because I'm just showing the pass rushers here. As for the Lions, here is their offensive line unit. It is Taylor Decker, Jonah Jackson, Frank Ragnow, Graham Glasgow, and Penei Sewell. If, of course, Frank Ragnow and Taylor Decker are both healthy. The Lions this year have given up 25 sacks, have allowed 109 pressures, 21.9% completion percentage, 53 quarterback hits, 31 quarterback hurries, and they've been blitzed against 134 times. And of course, as I forgot to mention earlier, you might see former Bronco Graham Glasgow. Of course, we signed him away from the Lions, played here for a little bit, and then was signed back to the Lions and is one of their starting guards as well. Or I guess one of their starting guards this season. Can also play center, so if Ragnow is out, I'd expect Glasgow to slide over to center and then play a different guard. But I don't know. I'm obviously not the Lions, and I'm not a Lions fan, so I don't know as much as a Lions fan would. But as for the Broncos, we have 34 sacks so far on the year we have 34 sacks on the year and have pressured opposing quarterbacks 101 times. As for the Broncos offensive line versus the Lions pass rush, here is the starting offensive line. I'm hoping Quinn Miners plays because, like I said, he is our best offensive lineman. But it's Garrett Bowles, Ben Powers, Lloyd Cushenberry, Quinn Miners, and Mike McGlinchey. Honestly, struggled in the early part of the season, but have been pretty solid these past few weeks. So I'm hoping they can obviously keep that up. This season, they've given up 38 sacks. I know Russ takes some sacks, obviously trying to improvise and extend plays, but they're going to be credited against the offensive line. So they've given up 38 sacks, have allowed 112 pressures, the Broncos have given up a pressure percentage of a 24.8%, while allowing 39 quarterback hits, 35 quarterback hurries, and we have been blitzed against 119 times. And the Lions so far this season have 28 sacks, which is crazy. I feel like that's a little bit low. But they've also allowed 128 pressures, or they've pressured opposing quarterbacks 128 times. I'm just surprised to see the sacks and pressure numbers pretty low, but, got to stay focused, and we've got to hopefully continue the trend. One thing I do want to mention as well as the Broncos 34 sacks, if you want to subtract 7, I understand, just because, of course, Nick Bonitto is out, and so if you want to give the Broncos 27 sacks, I understand. But yeah, Nick Bonitto does have 7 of those sacks, and he will be missing this game with his injury. So my final thoughts, it's going to be a tough game. The Broncos are fighting to make a playoff spot, potentially even win the AFC West if the Chiefs slip up down the stretch. But at the very least, we're fighting for a playoff spot. Lions have essentially already clinched a playoff spot. I don't think it's happened yet officially, but I'd expect them to make the playoffs. And right now they're fighting for positioning. And it's just going to come down to, in my opinion, to who wants this game more. I could see both teams winning the game. I could see the Broncos winning. I could see the Lions winning. But, you're going to call me biased, and that's fine. But I think the Broncos win this game 31-28. And then the Broncos will host the New England Patriots at Empower Field at Mile High in Denver, of course, at Sunday at 6:15. So another primetime game against the Patriots next week. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. My name is Parker, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out.